Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. Oh, wait. As Luciana told, I am Tiago. I'm a professor here in UFMG. From the Geology department, I was very excited when they make me the invitation to talk during the summer school. It's something that I like a lot. And, well, for the next hour, we're going to talk about Brazilian geography. Actually, the geography is quite a complex concept because it involves not only the nature, but also the human interview in the nature. We're going to talk mostly about Brazilian nature. It's amazing landscapes. Of course, Brazilian nature is outstanding. To prepare this, well, I will quote Julia. She helps me a lot with this presentation. And I am from the Geology department. Geology and geography, they are not the same, and I'm going to talk about it during the presentation, so of course I'm going to talk geology too. Because geology is very important here. The gold, the iron, they contribute a lot to the occupation of the Brazilian territory. And I'm going to show a little maps and we can understand it better. And, well, thanks for turning this tag around, but my eyes are not that good. I don't think I will be able to read the names. But okay, we can go ahead. Anything. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Just interrupt anytime you want. So for this presentation, I make a little index here. I'm going to start with a brief introduction, then talk about the demography, how Brazilian population is distributed around this enormous country. A little bit about geological time. Is just a brief, like 5 minutes, but just to understand, because geological time is very different than biological time. A biological time is like a human life, like 8 for 100 years. If you get historical time, I don't know, thousands of years, when we have to learn about geological time to understand the nature, how it shaped, how the mountain range formed, we have to talk millions and billions of years. So it's just to get the right scale. Then a little bit about the morphology, how Brazil was shaped, how these amazing beaches and mountains were shaped. We're going to go from north to south. I'm going to talk, of course, is just an introduction, a little bit about the northern region, the central, east, west, and south, and then just a brief conclusion. So, Brazilian nature is amazing. Of course, you all heard this. I showed some pictures. There are the most beautiful beaches in the world are in Brazil. This one is in Bahia. It's called Itacaré. This other one is in Fernando de Noronha. It's called Sancho Beach. This beach won like 5 times as the most beautiful beach of the world. So it's impressive. It's really beautiful. Of course, there is not only beaches. The most famous ones is in the northeast coast. There are these beautiful waterfalls. This one is the second highest from Brazil and is like 3 hours in a car from here, from UFMG. So if you want to meet sometime when you are here in Brazil, it's called Tabuleiro. There are the Iguaçu Falls, the most famous ones, of course. Amazon River, the biggest river of the world, very beautiful with the lowlands in the north of Brazil and the Atlantic forest. And besides these amazing lowlands, rivers, beaches and stuff, there is these mountains that are so beautiful, most of them in Minas Gerais and also in the north of Brazil. I'm going to show some maps about. This is the Roraima mountain, the Mount Roraima. Brazilian nature is amazing, very diversified, and I'm going to tell you a little bit how it's formed and how Brazilian people and migrations occupy the territory. So this is Brazil, a big part of South America with a great coast. And it's actually a very big country. Most of people have no idea how big Brazil actually is. You can fit Japan in one part. You can fit Texas. Actually, the Americas fits in Brazil. It's a very big continent, no? Of course, no, not Earth, not Africa, not America, but Brazil is actually quite big. This is a world map. And here in this color, I don't know, blue, purple, it's the country that have more than 5 million square kilometers in area. So we have Canada, US, Brazil, Australia, China, and Russia. Yeah, Russia doesn't count. It's extremely big. It's like half of the world. It's very, very big, very enormous country. If you get the top 5, Russia is like 17 million square kilometers. Then you get Canada, China, US, and Brazil. Brazil is quite big. It actually is a country with continental dimensions. You can fit the whole Europe in Brazil. This is an actual scale where it's not a trick. So you can put France. France is actually the area of Minas Gerais. This state is as big as France. So you have France, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Belgium, the whole thing is here. It fits in Brazil, and you can put something else. No big deal. So it's very, very big country. And of course, it's very diversified, not only in nature, but also in culture. So the demography density, this is an interesting fact. Brazil, we can divide it like in these regions. The north, the center-west, the northeast, the southeast, and the south. We are here in the southeast. So you can see, if you get an average, the population of Brazil is a little more than 200 million people with an area of more than 8 million square kilometers. An average of 24 inhabitants per square kilometer. So if you go to the north, here is where we have the Amazon forest. Well, it lows a lot. It's 4 inhabitants for square kilometers. That means that here we have almost no one for square kilometers. When we came here to the southeast, the most developed region of Brazil, it's 86 inhabitants for square kilometers. Here in Belo Horizonte, we have 7,000 inhabitants for square kilometers. So the demography, the density of the population is, of course, bigger in here, that we are more developed. I don't know if it's evolution or not, but it's another point. In Northeast, we have a lot of people, most in the coast, and here in the south, it's a more equal distribution. Here is just to check, this is the Brazil guidelines around here, and the biggest cities, of course, in the north, almost no one. The north has big part with the Amazonian forest and a lot with agriculture too. But if you check here, well, here is the beginning of Brazil, the beginning of the occupation of Brazil. The first colonization gets here in the northeast. But here in the southeast is where they found the Brazilian gold. Is when Portugal found Brazilian gold, like in the 17th century. And this guides a lot of Brazilian occupation. The mineral resources, of course, there is the cattle, there is the agriculture, but the mineral resources shaped a lot of Brazilian occupation. Here I bring some samples of the Brazilian gold. This is one of the, this is from around here. This is not actually pure gold, of course. This is a lot of other minerals. Other else will be very, very rich because this sample is like 2 kilos. But I'm gonna talk a little bit how the gold fever affect Brazil, not only during the 17th century, but also during the 80s, not too long ago. From who is in this point, I don't know, sometimes I point here in this, is okay to see? Okay. Oh, it's not. So moving on, so what shapes Brazilian landscape? So let's talk what really shapes, what formed these mountains, this beautiful coast, which forces are responsible for this? Which tectonical forces are responsible for this? So first of all, let's understand a concept. It's a little philosophical context, but it's nice to know. What is the landscape? This is São Paulo, the biggest city of Brazil. Well, Brazilian nature is not so amazing here, but it's good to understand what is the landscape, because when you look at this scenario, we see not only the present moment expressed, but accumulation of different times, not only the geological time, but also historical time. The social construction that humanity has made reflects its interests, which are accumulating in the landscape, revealing this diverse timing and process. So Brazil is very diversified in this aspect. The landscape, we have colonial towns. This is the Paulista, just to see, this is Salvador, the capital of Bahia, nice northeast state with amazing beach too. And this is São Paulo, the highest development center of Brazil. This is Paulista Avenue. And of course, Rio de Janeiro, it combined these amazing geological aspects, these beautiful mountains and sugar loaves with an incredible city, with a lot of culture. And another colonial town, this is Ouro Preto, where we're gonna go on Friday. This was the most developed city of Brazil during colonial times. Most of the gold in Brazil during the colonial times came from Ouro Preto. And these mountains, when you go there, you know, you feel like you are walking in a Switzerland cheese with a lot of holes, because there are a lot of galleries in the city. This is the main square of Ouro Preto. Most of the tourists don't go, but if you walk like 200 meters from there, you can go to a gallery where they extracted gold during colonial times. And some people still going there. Don't find a lot of gold, but still, it's something. So let's come back, because I will not talk about the occupation very much. It's more politicians and culture. I think they're gonna get this better. I was called here to talk about the forces that shaped Brazilian relief. And I'm gonna do just a 5-minute parenthesis to talk about geological time scale. Okay, it's very brief, just to understand the scale of millions of years. I don't know if everyone knows this. This is the cosmic calendar idealized by Carl Sagan, a great scientist. And in this calendar, it's very easy to understand the geological time scale, because he got a common year and said, okay, let's divide the whole universe in 1 year. So each month, it's around 1 billion years. And he gets, since the Big Bang, well, the Big Bang around 13.5 million years. Whoa. And then each month until the beginning of Earth. Earth has around 4.5 billion years old. It appears around September. And then, of course, in December, we have a more detailed story, because most of the things that we know are in the recent for geological time scale. If you think about it, in 1 year to the universe, a biological life, like 100 years, is like a blink of an eye. It's like 100 years is 0.2 seconds in a geological time scale. So that being told, let's understand what shaped Brazil. If we have here in the Earth, as we know, is a result of several geological events over near 5. It's 4.5, 4.6 billion years. What shaped Brazil? Brazil is relatively young. Two major tectonic events are very important for the configuration. The first one is about 600 million. It's not that old if we talk the universe that is 13 billion and the Earth with 4.5 billions. Well, in 6 million years, several little continents, small continents nuclei, they colliding, closing a small ocean, generating diverse mountain ranges. I'm going to show some sketches that make it more easily to understand. And it forms the supercontinent Gondwana. Gondwana, it's not very famous. Pangaea is very famous. The Gondwana then get together with another supercontinent to form Pangaea. Large masses there remain until 150 million years. In 150 million years, what happened here? The opening of the Atlantic Ocean. And this is very important to geological aspects too. So just to understand, to get in this scenario, we have comparative geology that includes not only paleontology studies. In paleontology studies, we get, okay, the same fauna, the same flora that happens in South America, happens in Africa, happens in Antarctica, in India, in Australia. We also get something about the lithology. The lithology is the kinds of rocks. They repeat all around Africa, America, Antarctica, and so on, and also the climate. Some rocks only form in specific climate conditions, some in glacials, others in deserts, and we were able to link it all together. Also, there is paleomagnetism. This is an imprint of the Earth magnetic field that is sticking the rock in the moment that it formed. That helps us a lot too. So, moving on, I'm going to show now a little sketch about this part of Brazil, the central part of Brazil. This horse-shaped stuff that is here, Belo Horizonte is around here. This is one of the microcontinents that was 600 million years ago. So there are a lot of stuff coming together here to form Brazil in this time. If you check the lines, so here we are. This is Minas Gerais. And here is Brazil. In this part, it wasn't formed yet. We didn't have this part of Brazil in around 600 million years ago. But if you check before 600 million years, you know, we are around here. We are right in the southeast of this blue horse-shaped continent. The ocean was like 10 kilometers, 50 kilometers, very close. Now we have to walk a little bit more if you want to go to the Brazilian beach. But it's okay, it's okay, it's for the best. It brings gold for us and so much stuff. Okay, this is the Gondwana scenario. Gondwana is this big paleocontinent. It's stitched together for millions and millions of years. Here is, okay, here is South America. Brazil is here. The horse-shaped stuff is here. Belo Horizonte is around here. And we are aligned with Africa and other paleocontinents. And when these forces join together, they shape a lot of mountains. And we can still see this. If you just go from south, from Belo Horizonte, this is what is called here the Espinhaço mountain range, or Serra do Cipó, where it begins. It's aligned with the tectonic forces from 600 million years ago. It's very amazing, the geological imprint. This is in the border from Minas Gerais to Espírito Santo, going to the coast. This is called the Bandera Peak. It's the highest point from Minas Gerais, and it also is aligned with these tectonic forces. This imprint is really amazing, is really beautiful. The mountain ranges all aligned perfectly in this direction. But the time came, and about 150 million years ago, the Gondwana break up. That means that South America go from one side, Africa go to another. It was mutual. Actually, America was crying, but it was mutual. It's no one's fault. But when they break up, something very important for Brazilian economy happens. These deposits right here are carbon deposits with a lot of organic matter, then a little million years after becomes Brazilian oil. The oil that is explored all around Brazilian coast. And it not only about the mineral resources, it shaped Brazilian lowlands, Brazilian plains. So if you have this huge map of Brazil here, all this gray color, they are lowlands. It's what we call sediment rocks. Lots of them isn't like covered by rivers and it plains. And there are some volcanic rocks. Here it's a picture of around here in the south region of Brazil, a lot of volcanic rocks. These volcanic rocks are going to go there. They are very important for some touristic resources too. So the lowlands were shaped, this fantastic river. This is the Amazon River. It just shaped, it's the biggest river of the world, one of the biggest plains and one of the biggest lowlands of the world, was shaped during this opening, during the Atlantic opening. So just to get back, what shaped Brazil is basically one event that get together a lot of small plates, small continents together, and then around 150 million years, they just spread apart. And Brazilian geography is very diversified. We have this amazing river. We also have a desert. In the heart of Brazil, this is Jalapão Desert. In Tocantins, happens a dry scenario. And this dry scenario is quite odd, because if you go a little bit to the north, you go to the Atlantic forest. The climate changes in an abrupt way around there. When we go to the south of Brazil, go to the south, go. When you go to the south of Brazil, we have these amazing canyons. They are just shaped during the opening, because when you have an opening, the tectonic forces change, and you start to separate Africa from one side, America for the other side. And it's not only the continents that go apart. The rivers starts to go to the lowlands, it starts to go to the ocean. And all this was together until the rivers starts to erode and shapes these beautiful rifts. Canyons, sorry. So it's very diversified. We have these lowlands around. This is the lowland around here. And around here, this is the lowland from pretty close to the desert. And here is in Minas Gerais too, in the north of Minas Gerais. We also have these mountain ranges, beautiful mountain ranges. This is the Godfinger. It is in Rio de Janeiro. Very beautiful, easy to go visit too. Now I'm going to start to talk about each part of Brazil. Brazil from north to south. This is South America, okay. This is the Andean mountain range. It goes from the north, gets Colombia, Chile, and so on. Here is Brazil. And, well, what is green here, it's old rocks from 600 million years or older. In red is the 6 million years, exactly around 6 million years rocks. And in the gray, the things there are the lowlands, the plains. Let's start talking. So we're going to go from north, the north region, then go to the central west, the northeast, the southeast, and then the south. So you feel free, any doubts that you have. Just first, we're going to take a general look in the climate and the vegetation. You see they are very close, these divisions, they look alike, the climate and the vegetation, and of course it's expected. If you have the climate here, in Amazonas, we have this equatorial climate. It's extremely wet, extremely hot. It rains all the time, all the time. There is a very nice series on Netflix. It's called One Strange Rock. There are a lot of astronauts, and to get better, Will Smith is the host. And the astronauts look in one point of the Earth and they say, I could never take a picture of the Earth in this point because there are always a lot of clouds. And this point is around here. This is the Amazon. There are so much of this beautiful forest and so much precipitation that it rains all the time. Well, when we go around here, of course, we have a transition zone going to the northeast, and then we have this tropical area. It's very dry, extremely hot, but very, very dry. In the central, well, we got a tropical common. It's what we have here in Belo Horizonte. We don't have actually the stations of the year. We don't have spring, we don't have winter. Actually, this is Brazilian winter. And if anyone here is from the northern hemisphere, I don't know, is from Europe or something like this, this is the winter. We will not get colder than this. And the summer is like 10 degrees more. We don't have these classic year stations like in other parts of the world, except from here, in the south. In the south, spring is nice, flowers everywhere. Then you have the summer, then you have the autumn, then you have winter, like pretty much like Europe climate here. And we have this in the beach that is wet and hot. It's an ideal weather for go to the beach. On the other hand, we have the vegetation. The vegetation here is the tropical rainforest. In the middle is what we call cerrado. The tropical rainforest is the amazing big forest with gigantic trees and very close vegetation, very dense vegetation. In the cerrado or savanna, it's small trees, almost with tortuous shapes. When we go here, this is the sad part. In the northeast countryside, it is the caatinga. It's dry, it's hot, you can't plant anything. It's very difficult there. It's some social issues from Brazil here. Then we have the tropical weather in the coast, and right in the south, the pampas for vegetation. So obviously, the climate and the vegetation gonna be together. Where you have the tropical rainforest, you're gonna get equatorial climate. Of course, it rain, it's wet, it's hot. Where you have the caatinga, you have the tropical zone, very hot, no rains at all. Here, in the vegetation, when you have the tropical forest, is, well, some part the tropical from northeast, and a little bit of the other part of the also tropical. And when you go to the south, you have the pampas. It's not a dense forest like this, but there are some forests with high trees. And it's the climate we call here temperado. It's with deforestation well defined. So let's go from each part, from north to south, in the Brazilian north. The north of Brazil is enormous. It's 45% of all Brazilian territory. It's almost 4 million square kilometers in area. You can fit most of Europe just in the north of Brazil. It's this yellow one, with the Amazon around here, Pará, and so on. It's very famous from the Amazonia lowland. The Amazonian rivers start here around the Andean mountain range, and go until it gets to the ocean. It also have the Guianas Plateau. Most of this part of the north, it's only the plains, the lowlands. But if you go to the extremely north, we get from one of the highest points in Brazil. There is the Roraima Peak. It's in the Guianas Plateau. And this is a satellite image. You can check a lot of clouds. This is just to be clear. Of course, this is a little part of the river, and clouds going all across the forest. It's very hot, very wet. It's raining all the day. When you go there, sometimes you don't even use an umbrella, because it's so hot that when it starts raining, you just say, oh, whatever, I'm going to stay here. Excellent. It was funny. One of the times that I went there, the first time actually, when I'm gonna make the check-in in the hotel, they just ask, okay, do you want the hot shower? I said, what? Yeah, the shower for bath, hot or cold? I said, oh, hot, of course, I wanted this. And I said, okay, this is gonna be R$5 more. I said, okay, I just pay. And then I check, because I have to turn off during the shower, because I was taking the shower and already sweating, because it's so hot. It's incredibly hot. It's very beautiful, the nature, but be prepared, because it's very, very hot. About the geology, fun fact, this is Breno dos Santos, not fun, but he discovered one of the biggest mineral provinces of the world. It calls Carajás. Well, Carajás changed a lot of Brazilian economy. It moves a lot of people to the north, and it's pretty recent. You can check. Breno is still alive. This is the guy that made the discovery. He went for the exactly same place for a picture. This picture is from the late 60s, almost the 70s. And how he discovered this is pretty interesting. He was in an helicopter flying in the Amazon, and he just checked the soil. If you see, well, you all are here in Belo Horizonte, there is a mountain in the south of the city. The top of the mountain is exactly this. This is iron ore. And you have a huge forest and one big portion that just no trees. And he said, okay, it looks a lot of iron ore. He get the helicopter, go down there, get the hammer. Geologists always use a hammer. It's like a shoe, I don't know. And he figured out a gigantic mining resource. This is the biggest, one of the biggest provinces of the world. And of course, it's all getting, this is mostly about iron. But when people go there looking for the iron, they discover a lot of gold. This is the thing, this is just when we drill this underground to check where there is, this is mostly iron with some gold in it. Well, hello, okay. Well, the iron there, they usually walk together with the gold. Well, this is a magnet, another thing we take to the field, and if you check the magnet, well, it sticks. It's almost pure iron here. And if you dig a little more, this is almost pure gold. So they find a lot and lot of gold there, mainly during the 80s. And when people start to hear about the gold, they start to go across there. And this happens. This is during the 80s. This is not like in hundreds of years ago. This is during the 80s. This is like 35 years ago. Serra Pelada, it's Naked Mountain or Naked Sierra, whatever. It formed a human ant hill. A lot of people go there looking for get rich fast. And, well, you saw in the beginning the demography in the northern region. This is the north. This is right in the north of Brazil. You have like 4 inhabitants per square kilometer. Almost no one lives there. That means that there is almost no police, no one to take care. So a lot of people found gold, but never get out of this with the gold. Because it was a land with no order. People start to dig everywhere. There are a lot. They found lots and lots and lots and lots of gold in these mountains. A lot of people go there looking for this gold. And, oh, this is a beautiful one. I don't know if it's actually true. I doubt this. But, okay, the picture here, in the top, it's a bear celebrating that he found a big piece of gold. The bear is in a cup here we call the Americano cup. I asked for, is there anyone from the US here? No, but I asked for someone from US if they use a lot of these cups there, but he said that he never saw one because, yeah, but we call Americano cup. And this is just the celebrating, a little beer to check out. Well, I don't have to say there are lots and lots of missing people here. Now it's stabilized. There is a company that got with the local people and they are exploring the gold. But during the 80s and the 90s, a lot of people just go there for the gold and never come back to home. Well, you can see it's very easy to miss someone here. Okay, continuing, we have the central part of Brazil. The central part of Brazil is around here. The climate is very close to the north, and it's also almost no inhabitants. We have our capital here, Brasília. It's very beautiful. You should visit. Despite the people that live there, it's very beautiful. And it's a very young one. It was founded in the 60s. Brazil is pretty young. Another place that worth the visit is the Pantanal lowlands. The Pantanal plains, it's amazing, the nature, the flora, the fauna. But the central part of Brazil looks a lot like the north one. The Northeast is the most amazing part of Brazil. I love this region. This is the beginning of the European colonization. If you go to Bahia, you can check, even there is a spot where they first arrived. Of course, there are a lot of issues in the Northeast. It's the blue region. If you have here the coast, in the coast, everyone is rich, a lot of people live there, of course not everyone, but well, here we have some problems. Is the dry and hot. Extremely dry, extremely hot. So this is the scenario of the caatinga. This is the typical plants, some cactus, and there are a lot of kinds of plants that they used to eat this too, because just there is anything else to eat. And here is a small subdivision of the climate. Here is what we call this countryside. This red one is the Sertão Nordestino, is the countryside for Northeast. And this is the point where the caatinga is terrible. No food, no plantation, misery. And around here we have this transition climate, and here another transition, but to the coast. So in the Northeast, it's extremely different. You know, in one hand, we have things like this: no water, people trying to live how they can. On the other hand, we have this. In the coast, this is Jericoacoara, an amazing beach from Brazil. It's a hot spot for tourists in the littoral around here. But if you check, people that live like this, what can they do with their lives? You know, there is no industry, they don't have anything to do, so most of them start to migrate mostly to Rio, São Paulo, and the southeast regions, the southeast big cities, also Belo Horizonte. And, well, this social discrepancy that we have in Brazil, an undeveloped country, is mostly because we don't give the attention that we have to give to the Northeast. It's very distant, the realities. This is a picture of Fernando de Noronha, an amazing island. This is 200 kilometers from Brazil, but it actually is Brazil. In the littoral, it's, Fernando de Noronha is around here. If you check, if you continue by the coast, you're gonna arrive here. You only go, well, you can go by boat, and most of people go there by plane. And if you check, it's an amazing island with the most beautiful beaches. This Sancho Beach is in the Fernando de Noronha, the beach that won 5 times with the most beautiful beach of the world. And this is what you can have in Fernando de Noronha. One day in this is almost what this worker won in around 2 years of work. And you pay for one day in this. So this is some problems that we have in Brazil, but we are working on it. One day we get there. About the geology. In the Northeast, one of the most expensive gemstones of the world is found in countryside of Northeast. It is the Paraíba tourmaline. Very beautiful gemstones. Just one thing, besides the problems, of course, I really recommend for all of you to go to the Northeast. You know, because you're gonna understand why Brazilian nature is so famous. The beaches there, the water is hot, and then you go outside, drink a little beer, then go inside the water. Oh, you're never gonna imagine. I was a couple of weeks ago in vacation and went to Europe. The summer there, it's almost the winter here, but it's okay. And I went to the Mediterranean Sea in Italy, around the Sicilia. When I get to the ocean, it was freezing. Everyone was go inside and playing. I said, oh my God, what these people are doing with their lives. If you go here, you will never get there again. It's very hot and warm. You know, you feel like you are doing a human soup there. Just, it's very, very good. So, going on. Oh, the Paraíba tourmaline is amazing too. We came to the southeast. The southeast, this beautiful southeast. This is the postcard of Brazil. A lot of people didn't know that the capital of Brazil wasn't Rio de Janeiro. It's actually Brasília in the central. But Rio de Janeiro, if you never went there, make a favor to yourself and go. You will not regret. It's actually very, very, very beautiful. Here in the southeast, well, 5% of Brazilians' resources, I said, in cash, come from here. Mostly São Paulo, Rio, and Minas. The other state is around here, is Espírito Santo. Beautiful state too. And, well, if you check in the southeast, Minas Gerais is the only state, the only province, that is not directly connected to the sea. So we go to Espírito Santo. When you go during the summer vacation, you know, you go January to Espírito Santo, I think there are more people from Minas Gerais than from Espírito Santo. You just check and see your neighbor and everyone is there. Is the Mineiros beach, okay? And, well, the resources are here. You remember I tell about the migration. People from northeast, mainly from the Caatinga region, from north and from central, west Brazil, they all came to the southeast. So 44% of Brazilian population is here. Most of in this part. This part we have Belo Horizonte, Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo. A lot of people came here because they are dreaming to get a good job, to get better life conditions. So talking about the geography, the morphology here, we have a big littoral lowland. These littoral lowlands fits around here, and it goes upside Brazil too. When you go a little bit inside, you get the mountain range. This mountain range, this is in Rio de Janeiro. If you walk a little bit to the north, you're gonna get in the division with Espírito Santo, Minas Gerais, and Rio de Janeiro. Oh, this is beautiful. This is amazing. This is the Serra do Mar, or the mountain range sea. And this is the Bandera Peak. Yeah, we have snow in Brazil. This is not actually snow, it's just a little ice that froze. This is the coldest day in Minas Gerais. This is a picture from the Bandera Peak. This is in the border between Minas Gerais and Espírito Santo. And, well, actually it's cold because it's almost 300 meters high. And, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about Belo Horizonte. This is our beautiful city. The Pampulha Lake. Remember about the landscape. Look how the mankind just occupy most of Belo Horizonte. And on Friday, we're going to get in a great viewpoint that we can check all of Belo Horizonte. And this viewpoint is around, I don't know, around here, if I'm correct. This is the mountain range in the south of Belo Horizonte. This is the Serra do Curral. Amazing, amazing, amazing. It is connected with Moeda mountain range. We're gonna stop here, going to Ouro Preto. If someone likes this adventure sports, almost every day there's paraglider going from one of the places that you're gonna visit. And important fact about Minas Gerais is that it shapes a lot of Brazilian occupation. This is a draw. Oops. This is a draw that gold mining during colonial times. The gold was in the rivers. Of course, the gold of the rivers is almost gone, but we still have a lot of gold mines. This piece is from Minas Gerais. It's pretty close here, going south from Belo Horizonte, not to Ouro Preto, but pretty close. And this also, I don't know if you can see the shining minerals. The shining minerals, they are not all gold, but there is a lot of gold there. Just to keep in mind, the gold is so disseminated in these rocks that they remove around 4 grams of gold for each ton of rock. 1,000 kilos of rock, 4 grams of gold, and it's good. It's a very good, you can open a gold mine with this. But during this time, the golds were in the rivers. There are like little pebbles in the rivers. And until today, we're gonna go to Ouro Preto. In Ouro Preto, when it rains a lot, all the rivers get a lot of water, and the bottom of the river get a lot of flux. And the rocks that are just down go up. And you can see the old guys from Ouro Preto, they put just like the Chinese hat in their heads, go to the river and start to do, I forgot the word, you know, just checking, I really forgot the word, sorry. We call here in Brazil, batear, is looking for golden rivers. And until today, they still go there, they still find gold. Oh, it's panning. And they still find gold. Of course, they don't find that amount of gold. We don't have the exactly amount of gold that went from Brazil to Portugal during the colonial times, but, well, we can do a little estimative with the quinto. The quinto was a tax that everyone that explored gold has to pay to the colonial king in the time to Portugal. And for this, we check that is about 500,000 tons of gold. This is the minimum estimative. It could be much more than this. And so this is the first time that gold shapes Brazilian occupation. Everyone until there only live in the coast, of course. They just drop in the coast, they start to do some sugar cane plantation, other kinds of agriculture, some cattle and stuff like this. But when they found the gold, whoa, gold fever, everyone goes there, try to find their pebble of gold. And, well, it was very rich, actually. Okay. This is a picture of a gold mine for nowadays. This is the geological hammer. And, well, this part, this yellowish part, is something like this. And, of course, it's not in the surface anymore. Now the gold is actually underground. And, again, sorry. And there are a lot of underground minings, of course. And it's not only the gold. If you check, you know, this beautiful mountain range in the south of Belo Horizonte. Now let's check this mountain range from the other side. We're gonna see from south to north. And we have this, the iron. Okay, hello to us. We are around here in Belo, and the other part of this mountain, it's a lot of iron mines. But this shape of the sierra, of the mountain, well, they can't take iron from it because it's a heritage from humanity. Thanks. thank God. And there are a lot of mineral resources here. I went during my PhD to do some studies in German, and there is a very nice castle in Freiberg. And this castle was a mineralogy museum. And there is one floor only with gemstones from Minas Gerais. This is fluorite. This is from north of Minas Gerais. I took this picture with a cell phone. I didn't believe that get this good because the sample is actually pretty beautiful. Of course, it's not that big, but the fluorite here, this cube is like a fist. And a lot of minerals that came from Minas Gerais gemstones. And here, these gemstones, they are pretty rare, and they still find, if you go to the north of Minas Gerais, you're gonna find these minings. They are not like the iron of the gold mines that you have everything, the security stuff and so on. You know, you just go in small tunnels, and the guy that dig it just go with a small lamp with gasoline or kerosene in the lamp, and he just say, come. I am a little bit claustrophobic, I confess, because when you go there, you know, you just go in the tunnel, and then when you go drop like 200 meters down, you found the guy with the hammer, just patient, take each part to get a beautiful gemstone. And now the gemstones are all around the world. We are checking with here, we're gonna have time on Friday to go to Ouro Preto Mineralogical Museum. There are some nice samples from Minas Gerais. Here in Belo Horizonte, I don't know if you already know, if you already went there, in the Liberty Square, in the south of the city, a beautiful mineralogical museum too, and some museums, great museums in that square too. Another part of the southeast geological thing is the ornamental rocks. Ornamental rocks everywhere. If you check Brazil, well, we have to admit, we are an undeveloped country, so we live off these resources until today. And from Minas Gerais is still one of the most expensive ornamental rocks of the world. It's very rich in this too, so thank God for that. I don't know if he has something to do with this, but thanks. And then, okay, in the southeast, when the Gondwana break up, we are around here. When form these lowlands and these covers, we know, but nature form the oil. And Brazil has a lot of oil. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. The main company that get these resources is Petrobras. It helps a lot with scientific projects. This is just, most of them are around here in the sea. We do these platforms to dig the oil, and in the beginning, the dig of the oil was just around here. A few years ago, we discovered this. This is what we call pré-sal or pre-salt, because there is a big salt layer. This is common across all the ocean. And, well, right behind it, a gigantic deposit. It was actually expected because this is how oil works. You know, the salt, it's an impermeable layer. So nothing passes, and so nothing can go up. So all the oil here gets trapped behind the salt. And when they start drilling and saw that much oil, whoa. This is the name of the platforms, and just to have an idea, well, during the, I think during the 80s, let me check. Yeah, this is during the 80s. We have 41,000 berries per year. Now it's, per day, sorry, and now it's 500,000 barrels per day. This is the pre-salt. You know now Brazil has a lot of oil, and, well, in the southeast too. So you can imagine why the southeast is so rich, because, well, since the colonial times, the gold is here, the iron is here, the oil is here, a lot of the big economical centers turn out to get here. So it developed the central of the economic Brazil. And most of these deposits are around here. If you go to Google Earth, you see when you go to a dark blue to a more shallow blue here, so around here you have these deposits. So just almost finishing, then we can do a little break, and then we can take questions. Let's go to the south. The south part of Brazil, this actually rains rains in all of Brazil except some part of Northeast. It snows every year. Every year, this is a town called São Joaquim, and you know it's very far, and every year you can expect from the news, oh, it's snowing in São Joaquim. Of course, we know. It happens every year, and take a picture of this part every year, and took, I don't know even if it's the same picture. But, well, if you are waiting for a tropical weather, it's good to know. You can get cold here in Brazil too. The geological aspect that is very interesting in the south. This is a geological map. This is the south of Brazil. Okay, just to see, this is the south region. And this is the end of Brazil. Then we go to Uruguay around here. This is the south state. So these colors is representing this area. Okay, this shape is this area. When you go here, this color here, this brownish, this is a rock called basalt. Basalt is a dark volcanic rock, and it's very dense. So you have a lot of volcanism in this region around 80 million years ago. And when this volcanism starts, you know, you start to drop a lot of heavy rocks in the top of sands, in some really shallow rocks, you know, rocks with low density. And the result, it collapses. You know, the basalt's getting on top of it, and then start comprising them down. It's very interesting, because all the rivers respond to this. So the rivers, you know, during the breakup, the rivers starts to go to the ocean. When you have these basalts, the rivers get back to the center of the continent, and they shape amazing waterfalls. Sorry. They shape these canyons, and the waterfalls related to them, they are just beautiful. This is the most famous of Brazil. This is the Iguaçu, right in the border with Argentina. And it's actually a very nice touristical place. You can go down here, but remember, in the south, the climate is, well, pretty much like in Europe or in US. So it's a little cold, and you can't go in the waterfall. You can take a bath in these waterfalls. Because if you go there, I don't know, you die actually, because it's pretty strong. So if you want to go to a waterfall to enjoy the summer or the sun and just lay down, so go to here in Minas Gerais, we have amazing ones. So people, I hope I cover a little bit of the Brazilian geography and geology, of course. And as you can see, here is the whole South America. This is the relief. You can see the lowlands in Brazil. It takes a big part of Brazil. And the mountain range, here we have São Paulo, here is Minas Gerais, Belo Horizonte is around this spot here. In the top we have these plateaus also, but well, the nature is very diversified, the culture is very diversified. I hope I contribute something with the geography. We're gonna take a small break now, take some coffee, and after the break, feel free to have any questions. I will try to answer as good as possible, okay? Thank you very much. So 10 minutes for coffee, and then we get back for questions. Okay. Okay, guys, so now if you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to help. Sorry. Just raise the hand and... Como é que você chama? Como é que você chama? Oh? And Christian will give the microphone, okay? Silence. One each time, don't worry.
Hello, I'm Ian. I study geography at the University of Leeds. And I was just wondering if you could, if you could touch on the formation more of Rio and how we get the distinctive sort of Sugarloaf mountains and things that are present today and how that formed over time, because I don't know.
Okay, great. So, actually, this is a part that I have a little bit of difficult to explain because I study a lot there. Actually, my master thesis and my PhD get some part of this. So the question, if I get right, is how the sugar loaves from Rio de Janeiro forms how it get theirs in Rio, something like this. Well, you remember when I show one of the events that shaped Brazil like 600 million years ago. I'm gonna put it here just to refresh. 1 second. Nope. Okay, it's just to make it easier. to explain. So in this event, many continents start to group together. When it happens, you generate a lot of magmatism, a lot of granite rocks. If you get these things here, these colors, this green, this orange, blues, pink color, they are all different kinds of granites that they are formed during this time. So the sugar loaves from Rio de Janeiro, they were formed around 500 to 600 million years ago. But of course, the relief, it's alive, it changes every time. So the second event is when Atlantic Ocean start to opening. And it arranged a series of tectonic structures we called tectonic faults. And these faults cause the terrain to slip aside, you know? And what happens when it slips aside? You can form basically two kinds of relief in granites. If the minerals in the granites, they are all really oriented, so you get a mountain range like this one. You know, in these mountain ranges, they are all aligned because the minerals are like this. So when it starts to rain and the rain get this structure, it starts to erode here. On the other hand, what happens in Rio de Janeiro, the minerals are chaotical. They don't have a preferential orientation. So you start, you know, the weathering and the erosion starts to get all across the granite in the same way. So it gets like an onion, and it starts to go layer by layer, just going apart. And when you go, you know, not all the rocks in Minas Gerais and Espírito Santo are like this. Some of them looks exactly like the sugar loaves from Rio de Janeiro, because they are granites. They are formed like in 10 kilometers down in the subsurface. And then when you start the Atlantic, and you know, all the rocks are like this, and the Atlantic opened, and the granite that was here, 10 kilometers deep, now is in the surface. And it have no orientation at all. So it starts like an onion, just to go layer by layer, layer by layer. And what we see now, it's the result of like more than 150 million years of Atlantic opening, and a little bit, year by year, it's just go one layer down, other layer down. In Rio de Janeiro, it's pretty much stable now. But when you go countryside, in Minas Gerais and Espírito Santo, and a little bit in Rio, there are some sugar loaves that this layer is still just unattaching. And, well, you can cause some small earthquakes when it drop. But in Rio de Janeiro, it's okay. It's already pretty much stable. I hope you understood it, because it involves a little bit of geological terminology. You know, you have to understand what is a fault. When the Atlantic Ocean opening, you have a lot of these faults, and a lot of rocks that are deep down goes upwards. They just start the surface, and imagine when it was deep down, it a lot hot and pressure. The temperature rise. You know, the temperature in 1 kilometer going down, you can get around 30 degrees Celsius. So, you know, when you have 10 kilometers, it's a lot hotter, and the minerals are stable there. So when you get this fault, and suddenly they are with no more pressure of 10 kilometers rocks in their heads, they have no more of this high temperature, so they just start to fall apart. This is the weathering acting. And if you check Brazilian morphology of the sugar loaves, most of them has some vegetation inside, in the top. This happens because of this climate. This is the tropical weathering. You know, when it starts a lot of rain, it starts to do the alteration of the minerals. A granite starts to transform in clay. And this clay is able to grow vegetation. And the vegetation starts, so the roof of the trees starts to penetrate the granite and more water are inside. And then the weathering and the erosion just keep faster in tropical unities. That's one of the reasons that Brazil has the sugar loaves, but they are not very tall. Brazil don't have a lot of tall mountains. If you go to Andes, there is a little bit to the west. The mountain range for Andes, a small mountain is bigger than any other mountain in Brazil. Okay?
Thanks.
Any more questions? Someone?
Hi, I have a question, but it's less geological, so I'm sorry about that. I was just wondering more about the social side of mining in Brazil and whether there's much opposition to mining or whether there has been much protest and that kind of thing like there has been in other countries. Thank you.
Okay. So it's about the mining issues. It's pretty hard nowadays to talk about mining in Brazil because this year we have a big disaster in an iron mine pretty close here. When we go to one of the viewpoints, we will be able to see what it caused. Well, mainly I will put just one image to everyone get the picture. So, this picture is from a classical iron mining that we have pretty close to Belo Horizonte. What happened in the accident? This is not active anymore, so they are already filling it with water. They just stop pumping and the water goes to cover it all. The normal ones, they get the iron ore, and the other part, they just keep, because they have to throw it somewhere. And it's a lot of material to store. It's like thousands and thousands of tons of clay. And I think 3 or 5 years ago in Mariana, one of the cities that we're gonna go, there was a big disaster that one of these places that they store this clay, it collapsed. And it collapsed, it just go across and destroy a village, a small village, and then went to the river. And this clay went all across Minas Gerais until the ocean, and you can see this disaster because it actually killed the river and all the life in the river. In January of this year, another of these places that have this clay collapsed, and this was harder because when it collapsed, they start to sound alarms, and people have to just move from there because there is no way to stop this clay. And it collapsed and killed more than 200 employers that were working there in Brumadinho. And this is very hard because when you check the scarf that the mining leaves in the relief, if everything goes okay, you have this scarf. You know, you have this thing that it's ugly to see. And you have a lot of environmental issues because here in Minas Gerais, the government track for ambiental laws very seriously. But not everyone respects it. And in one hand, most of the population hate the minings, really hate. And when there is these two collapses in Mariana and Brumadinho in these iron mines, it's like it drops. Everyone was against the mining. The other point is that Brazil is still an undeveloped country. So the mining, what brings money. The mining is what brings jobs. The mining is what brings the resources to the country. And what happens in Mariana, I think it was 5 years ago, they just stopping all the mining there. And then the population from Mariana make a protest to the mining to get back because they have to live, they have to work, and they didn't have any other activity to do because they are used to this kind of development. So most of the population in Brazil, they are against mining, but on the other hand, they use the fact, all the products, because if you have like a cell phone, a car, this building, everything, some kind of copper, nickel, iron, something, some minerals are in it. And, well, it's a very complex issue, actually, because the same time that we depend of the mining, we are like hostage of the mining companies because we need them because of the resources that they provide. The same thing in the oil companies. Sometimes there is some oil leak in the ocean, and it's an environment disaster. And we depend on them, but most of people don't actually see this. And, well, like in Belo Horizonte, not a lot of people works in the minings. And they just see the worst part. They say, okay, this have to stop now. But if it stop, the Brazilian economy collapse. You know, so it's a very, it's complicated issue. I really don't know what's gonna happen in the politics in the next years. In the government of Minas Gerais and Brazil, they just start a new government in January and then start trying to get mining easier. And what happens in January, this collapse of this place of storage that kill a lot of employees and destroys, another river was destroyed by this, it get a red light. You know, they all get alarmed and, well, actually still adjusting. We don't know how to do this because only here in the Belo Horizonte region, when you check this mountain range, this is connected to the mountain range in the south of Belo Horizonte. It's also made of iron. And, you know, if you check all the cities that are in risk if these things continues to collapse, we have Belo Horizonte is not in danger, but you have Ouro Preto is in danger. There are a lot of historical cities that we have even humanity heritage in danger because of this. They are already being developed in an unresponsible way, and now we have to figure out some way to make it safer. But until today, we don't actually have a response to what is the best thing to do, because we depend on the mining for the jobs and the resources, but it can't keep the way it is because of obvious environmental issues. Okay.
So, thank you very much for your lecture. I could have a similar question in the same direction, but regarding the oil sector. Because you showed us this graph, and I wanted to ask you to explain us a bit more about the development you showed us with these different kinds of drilling from the 80s until now. And I would be interested to know how is the relation between transnational oil companies and national and Petrobras in this case. Okay. How are the gains, for example, divided? Because of course, regarding the situation you mentioned, it is important to know also how the gains in this sector can be redistributed into, for example, social programs, or if they are actually going outside of the country. Thanks.
Okay. Just to get, if I understand the question is how these resources are distributed, something like this. How? Ah, yeah.
Percentages of how many barrels you had in the 80s and now
Yeah.
in the different forms of drilling. That would be the more technical question because I don't understand.
Okay.
Geology. And the second part would be in the same direction of the social impact regarding how these gains are distributed between national and transnational companies, and then how much of them goes into.
Okay. The first part, I will be able to ask a little better, is how we get to drill so deep. Actually, nowhere in the world there is this kind of oil exploration, so deep oil exploration. There are platforms in the ocean, world around, but this goes more than 8 kilometers drilling to get in the ocean until the bottom of the rock. So this is all development in Brazil. This was all developed by Petrobras. Petrobras is a Brazilian governmental company. It was developed just to explore the oil, because Brazil always has this tradition, has a lot of oil. Well, in the last years, it's been the target of a lot of scandals with corruption, and everyone here sees something about it. But let's go first to the technical issue. Drilling in the ocean is extremely hard, because when you're going to drill like for gold or iron, you just go with a truck, you park the truck, and you just make it very stable and start to drilling. And you can go 1, 2, 3 kilometers into even 4 kilometers. You can go drilling and just get storage. Some drills like this. This is just because the other half of this drill was used for analysis. And you will recovering, and then you can see exactly where is your deposit. To drill so deep is extremely hard, because you have first the platform. In the platform you have some stable to go drilling. But when you go to open sea, where you have the big pre-salt deposits, the platform is not very stable. So you have, if you start to drilling, the drilling starts to go kind of chaotic. You can't control the drilling. So it's beautiful. Petrobras developed like a small platform that go in the bottom of the ocean, and then they start to drilling from there. It's extremely complex technique, and then they finally get to go to the oil, and when you drill, the oil is trapped. There is, like, for example, the salt. The salt make a little curve, and then the oil start to trap around in the base of the curve. If you drill here, the oil gonna escape. And then when it starts to escape, of course, it leaks a little bit. But most of them go inside the drill and just was pumped out to remove it. So this is one part of the technical. The other issue, how much goes to social programs? I don't have the accurate percent, but every company in Brazil, mining or economic, they have this, well, there is a law that a little bit of the percentage of the profit goes straight to social programs. It's not very big, but when you talk in an oil company, we are talking billions and billions of dollars. So it's a huge amount of money. If you have 0.2% of this, it's already millions of dollars to go to social program. The big problem is, well, the corruption here, unfortunately. We don't know what is true or what is not. We are now living a stage of Brazilian history that I feel sorry about the history professors, because they're gonna have a little bit of a headache to explain it. I don't know what is happening here, but, well, in one hand, there is a lot of corruption. In the other hand, from the 2000s from now, there are a lot of social programs that work to take the people from misery to have, to give them minimal life conditions. Most in the Northeast, in the countryside of Northeast, that is the poorest part of Brazil. Millions of people stop to dying of hungry. These social programs, they literally save a lot of lives. And a lot of this was made with the money from oil, iron companies, also from agriculture. And now we have one other issue, is that how this is divided, who can explore it. There was a law in Brazil that just came apart in the 90s, that all the coast of Brazil, the only company that could explore was Petrobras. It was very good because despite the corruption that everyone knows that has some, they developed a lot. And they find a lot of oil. This oil pay not only for social programs, but for research. They even build a university. There is the Petrobras University that is also public. And, well, this part goes well until the 90s. They opened the market. So any company can come here and, try to buy some part. This is like the mining works. You go to an area and you require an area for research. So let me see a map. So they can come here and say, okay, I want 10,000 square kilometers of this part of the ocean I will require for research. After this, I will dig for oil. If I get oil, I have to be authorized to drill the oil. So every company is able to do this, are able to do this. But Petrobras is very much in front of this because it's the company that did all the research. So they know where is the oil, where are the better places to look for the oil. So until today, we have, well, maybe Petrobras is the main company, but now other companies are beginning to get in Brazil. From 2016, for now, I think 3 other companies get big parts of the Brazilian oil resource, and they are already exploring it. And well, one problem is when Petrobras is exploring, a big part of the profit goes already to the government because it's a government company. And when you have a private company like Total or something like this, then just a small piece has to go to the government, the other is the profit of the company. Nowadays, most of the oils are from Petrobras, still from Petrobras. The main ones, the Petrobras, I think, still with more than 90% of the oils fields, but it's beginning to grow of other companies coming here to get oil. And, well, I don't know, and now I'm gonna just give my opinion. I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. If other companies trying to exploit oil here, if it's a good or a bad thing, I actually don't know. In one hand, we have that Petrobras gets a lot of money and we are almost self-sufficient in oil. On the other hand, the world is claiming for cleaner energies. The world is claiming for electric cars, to look out for the environment, and when you have this fossil, it's very pollutant. The cars nowadays are a big problem. So we are sitting a large oil, a large drop of oil, and I don't know if we need it all. I really don't know if it's the best for Brazil. This is a personal opinion, because I don't know how long the world will still depending on oil. And, well, actually it's like the mining, it's a tricky issue, and maybe there is a talk about the politics in Brazil. I think they will be able to ask more accurate, mainly the social part. Okay. No, my pleasure.
Thanks so much for the presentation. Really love the pictures and the breakup of Gondwana. But mine is more, my name's Lesejo, I'm from South Africa. My question is more of like related to environmental stuff. So where I'm from in Cape Town, we're starting to feel a change in our climate a little bit. It's getting warmer and warmer, our summers, which are, and we're getting less rain in winter, which shapes our vegetation, especially on our mountains. So like, Cape Town is known for Table Mountain, and the vegetation there, especially the fynbos, is really famous. But they're starting to die out because of the climate changing slowly. And I was wondering if you've noticed any changes or alterations in the landscape, if you feel any effects of like climate change.
Okay.
In Brazil?
Yeah, that's a point that's been in debate from the last decade, is the global warming. and how it affects the society. In the southern hemisphere, it's gonna affect a lot. You know, from your city, I think it's one of the more dramatic cases world around. Because, well, climate change is, it's in a scientific point of view, it's obvious. It's already proved. It's no for arguing or anything like this. And it's the climate here. Last week, Belo Horizonte, I think last week, Belo Horizonte just registered one of the coldest years in the history. And then one of the politicians that think climate change is something to believe or not, he said, oh, where is the global warming? But the global warming, actually, it affects for hot and for cold. And, well, they just said, of course, if you start to get so hot, you know, the current's gonna change and the Arctic current go a little up. And, well, I think the big problem, the big picture is a little harder because, in one hand, in the southern hemisphere, we have some terrible projections because Brazil depends a lot of agriculture, and if the temperature continues to raise this much, some places there we use mainly for agriculture will be no longer cultivable, and we have to go to the north. We go into the north, it implies that we're gonna even more start to destroy the Amazon forest. This year is already the record. We never destroyed the Amazon forest so fast. And in one hand, there are some programs trying to stop it. There are a lot of programs with satellite images, but the problem with the satellite images, because the clouds you can't check, it's always raining. But it's already affecting Brazilian agriculture. There are some places that they are just losing all the plantation. Can't use, and they are migrating to the north. And when they get to the north, the thing is, well, the end is not happy because they are migrating to the north and they are destroying the Amazon forest in that part to make agriculture and cattle too. So it's quite kind of tricky because it's again on the money issue. You depend on the agriculture, but some places are no longer cultivable. It's already seen now. It's seen nowadays. You can check there are some places that used to go okay, but even with fertilizer, they are not working. And one point, if you check now the toxic that you put in the plantation to keep it growing well, never been so big here in Brazil. Actually, the plantations that we do here in Brazil, they will not be allowed in any country of Europe because the many toxic that we have to put to improve because it's not working anymore. And we're still depending on that, so to grow, put a lot of chemicals in the plantation. And it's kind of the same thing of mining. We depend on this, and as much as you destroy, you are just accelerating the climate change. But one thing that we still don't have here is the water issue. The water issue here didn't happen yet because Brazil is extremely rich. The biggest water deposits of the world, the ground out in the ground, you know, groundwater, they are in Brazil. The Alta do Chão is the biggest one, is in the north, and it's extremely rich. And one of the parts that it's extremely rich is because the volume of water there is in the clouds is bigger than the volumes of water that there is in the river. It's amazing. There is so much water in the clouds, and it's always redistributing. And this point here in Brazil, the water, it's not a big issue yet, but in some cities like São Paulo, they had some, well, this time of year, Brazil, we don't have the 4 seasons. We have maybe one season that rains a lot and one season that don't rain. We are not now that in don't rain season. In the end of the year, it rains every day, but it's hotter. So in 2013, the rain season rains much less than the other years. And of course, it has to do with climate change. And in São Paulo, the city grew every day, and they start to use more and more and more and more water. In 2013, when it didn't rain the expected, they went out of water for like, not a day, but like, okay, today from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., no water. And then 10 p.m., I don't know if it works anything, because at 10 p.m. everyone start to use it. But it starts to look in a rational viewpoint. The problem is it's hard to do the conscience of the people if they are not missing. It's hard to say, okay, you can't use that much because in the future we will not have water, but they say, okay, now we have, and it's very hard. Mainly because, well, then it becomes more intricate because there are a lot of social problems. So you say to someone, and like in a favela where the poor people lives, oh, you can't spend that much of water. They just gonna look at you, I wanna eat. So whatever the water. And well, the part of the climate change, it's that I said in the beginning, in the science it's more than comparable, because climate change are registered in geological time scale, but never that fast. This year I went to a conference just about climate changing, and the Arctic, the North Pole, the provisions, if we go like this, in 10 years will be no longer North Pole, you know, there will be no longer ice there. And they just show images from the last 20 years, and you see that is less than a half already. That was 20 years ago. And it's just, well, summarizing, here in Brazil, the water issue is not a big deal yet, except in big cities, mainly São Paulo, because the demography is so dense there. There are a lot of people living there, and they use more resource that they can consume. Here in Minas Gerais, it's very hard to get something like this because there are a lot of water here and water underground here too. And in the rest of Brazil, it's no issue at all. Actually, I think in the future, there is one journalist that say in the future, if there is some war in Brazil, gonna be because of the water, because we are the main producer of the world, and we use it in an extremely irresponsible way. Because, well, if you check something like, oh, look at him, he's, I don't know, watering the plants and then go in the sidewalk with the water. This is almost nothing. The industry here consumes like more than 80% of the water. It's a lot. Actually, what we should check is for a water-free industry that don't consume that much water, because the population don't consume that much. But the industry, again, that we depend for the jobs, it should invest in more technology to be a little more water-free. But bottom line, the agriculture is already sensing the climate change here. The rest, well, is like, you see the climate change? No, They can see, but they pretend they don't see. Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
So, my question is also related to climate changes. It's not about global warming, but something that happened billions of years ago, I think. I'm talking about the Ice Age era, and I was just wondering if it played any important roles on the formation of our geology here in Brazil, and if we can find evidence of it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
I was wondering if we can find evidence back from the Ice Age here in Brazil, and if it played any important role on the formation of our geology in any way.
Yeah. Nice. It's very nice. Now I even get up because this is a technical issue that I know a little bit about. No, but, well, the Ice Ages here, we have a list register of 2 Ice Ages, and they are very well developed in the rock register, and not in the only in the rocks. When you go to the field, the glaciation, the glaciation deposits, they have some specific features. So we can check even in the field. You can go there and you see, okay, this is an ice deposit, because sometimes ice, when you have an iceberg and this deep root, it goes like stretching the rocks above. This is one of the features we can see here in Minas Gerais, a lot of these Ice Age deposits. About the ore, well, the iron ore, it developed, most of the iron ore from Brazil, it developed 2 billion years ago. And it was not related directly with the glaciation age. It was because in the atmosphere, it begins to produce a little more cells that produce oxygen. And when you produce the oxygen, the iron was just around the ocean, but as an ion. It couldn't deposit. When you get the oxidation, it starts to deposit. It was about 2 billion years, and it became famous, a period of the geological time, because a lot of bacteria go word around. But there is one deposit here in Brazil of iron that is directly related to the Ice Age. Because during the Ice Age, all the oceans have this crust, this cap of ice. And the atmosphere continues to develop with oxygen, and in the ocean, all the life starts to suck the oxygen and don't produce anymore. So that means that all the iron that is still in the ocean water stop the deposition because there is no oxygen for them to get deposit. And when you stop the Ice Age, usually the Ice Age come to an end when there are big eruptions, volcano eruptions, because it displays a lot of carbon dioxide on the atmosphere. It's make like some hot effect, and it start to melt the ice. When the ice starts to melt, oxygen starts to go inside again the ocean, and the iron deposit again. And so in the end, when you can check these deposits of glacial age, right on top of them, there are some iron formation here in Brazil due to this oxidation, exactly this oxidation after Ice Ages. And so, yes, we can see the glacial time here. Actually, pretty close to Belo Horizonte, there is a nice outcrop, a rock that keep these glacial features, I think like 50 kilometers from Belo Horizonte, but the ore deposits only in the north that you can check right on top of these glacial sequences.
Hello, thank you for your lecture. My question is about this mining issue. First we talk about gold and then iron, and now I would like to know a bit more about niobium, because this is a mineral and very polemic, and I don't know a lot about it, and I think this affects us a lot in the social side and also the politics.
Yeah. The niobium is another polemical issue in Brazil, because Brazil hosts more than 90% of the niobium of the world. This is a fact. We have a lot of niobium here. And during the 90s, there is this person, he was candidate for president. He's already dead, but he said that the Brazilian niobium gonna save Brazil. This is bullshit, because yes, we have 90% of the niobium of the world, but the niobium go in metal leagues, and it can be replaced by many other minerals, many other elements. So the niobium we commercialize here is in a fair price, is in a great price. It can go upper, because if we goes, well, if we make it more expensive, other country will just stop buying it, because they can replace it very easily. The niobium get famous in Brazil because it occurs mainly here with huge amounts, but in the other hand, it can be replaceable. You can take copper for something, nickel for other things, titanium for other things. And so if you raise the price so much, people just won't buy it. And nowadays, the former president of Brazil still think the niobium could save the country, but there is this issue. It just can't, because, well, you can't invest it. The former president, he said that we should invest in research in niobium. This is very good. I think it's a way, but the research don't give a result in the next day. The result takes years or decades, and you can just find that niobium can just be used for a metal league. And so you research a lot, and you didn't get any further. So basically, the social claim is why we are giving the niobium away. We are not giving the niobium away. We are just, well, it's a fair price. It's a fair price for what niobium can do. And people claim a lot because it only happens here. But we can't charge more for this. If we charge more, people just stop buying. There are a lot of mineral resources in Brazil, and, well, as a lot of undeveloped countries, we still get all the resources as much as we can. The niobium is just one of them. And usually, all around the world, they don't use much niobium because they don't have. And they buy from here, but they just replace the niobium for other metals. It get the same effect. It's a good thing to start researcher here the uses of niobium for us to use it more. But, well, I don't think it's gonna save the country. Yeah, every time we are searching for some hero, never gonna have a hero. We're never gonna get, a magical solution for our problems. The social problems are extremely complex, and they are not gonna be solved with, well, the gold didn't solve it, it just make it worse. So the niobium, of course, it won't lead. Well, again, summarizing, we have a lot in other parts of the world don't have, but it's not very special because you can do anything extraordinary with niobium. It can be replaceable very, very easy. So that's the issue. And as we are going, we are just getting the fair price, and I think in this part is okay.
Hi. I was just going to ask, so in the UK, there's like a big thing at the minute about climate change, so we're using less plastic, there's like charges on plastic bags in the shops and stuff, and like plastic straws, like getting phased out, paper straws coming in and things. But in Brazil, you're saying like there's a lot of oil, like a lot of use of water. We've noticed when we're here, like there's so much plastic. Like, is anybody trying to? Is there anything like coming into place to try and stop climate change here?
Yeah. Well, nowadays it's a little hard because I don't know what is happening around the world. The politicians is a little crazy, but here we are trying to improve the environmental issues, you know. In some places, like Fernando de Noronha, the island that I told, it's 200 kilometers from Brazil. So when you go there, everything is more expensive because the island is 17 square kilometers in area. I will use this example, then I go to Brazil, you know. So there they have cars, of course. The gasoline has to come from the continent there. So 1 liter of gasoline here, I don't know how much is, 450 reais, something like this. There is around 90. So you want a tomato, they don't have any kind of agriculture there. You have to come from the continent to there. And so everything there is more expensive. And on the other hand, they don't use plastic there anymore. All the garbage, they have recycling. And this is a very developed. But there is like a magical place in one spot of Brazil, because there is a lot of tourism with a lot of money and things works. When you got the whole picture, well, in Rio de Janeiro, they already say that the straws, the plastic straws, they can't be used anymore. The plastic bags, most of places in Brazil, they are banishing too. But this is just the beginning, because I think the big point is we still very dependent on the oil consumption. We don't have trains here. If you check, we have trains, but not to travel, like in UK, for instance. Here we travel mostly by buzzing roads and consume a lot of oil. The planes, a lot of oil. Everything here this is the things of undeveloped countries. We still far away, very far. We have issues that, like, people dying of hunger. We have a lot of misery. We have the favelas. And when we go to these places and try to say to them, okay, you have to recycle, it's no way. It's no way. So even here in Belo Horizonte, when you go to the south part of the city, it's the richest part of the city. There, you can check a lot of recycling points because, well, people have more structure, they have more knowledge, and they know it's important. Something that is far, but far away from what you have, like in UK, is the electric cars. We have almost none here. And when you go to some places that are more developed, like in Fernando de Noronha, it's a small island. I think they have more electric cars than Belo Horizonte. And it's, well, Fernando de Noronha is an island, I think it's the size of this campus of UFMG, and have more electric cars. You understand? We know about the global warming issues. There is a lot of environmental programs. They took place mainly in the early 2000s. They get a lot of new programs to check the Amazon forest. I think one of the biggest that, well, actually the Brazilian government is very proud of it because it's a satellite one, and is the best one that was ever developed. That it really restrained a little bit the Amazon forest devastation. But it's a long path. And sometimes, you know, when you start to working with the environmental issues, it's really hard here to keep going, because in the government, in one hand, they do an excellent job. In a part of Amazon, right above, a little bit to the south, they pretend they don't see the agriculture that is devastating. Around here, in one hand, they really say you should use less water, but they don't charge it for big companies that use more water. So, well, there is this concern with the environmental issues, but not as much as Europe. It's clearly not as much, mainly because it's hard to input this here, do social problems that are right behind. You know, I don't know if it was an accurate response, but the environmental laws exist. We try to put them to work, but it's very hard to do all the social problems that they have to pass.
Thanks. I read Vidas Secas, Dry Lives, and U15. Some livers, excuse me, that books talk about the Sertão. Sertão do Norte.
Ah, okay.
Sim. The situation in the Sertão is as terrible as the book says.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
The situation at the north of Brazil is as terrible as that book.
Well, it was worst. Yeah, no, it was worst. During the 2000, there is a beautiful program, and that gives some minimum resource to the people, money actually, just a little bit. It was not very much. It was actually, if you get in euros, it's like 20 euros a month. And it was already enough to people start to buying things, and it starts to move the commerce and the markets. But it's still very hard, because what are you going to do to these people? They live in a place that, in an undeveloped country, the agriculture is not okay. There is no mineral resources. And the problem is, when people from there start to migrate to the southeast, believe it or not, there is some racism against the people that come, well, some xenophobic issues about people that come from northeast to southeast. In Brazil, the same country is still this. It's, well, we are very undeveloped in this issue too. So people mainly from the southeast, some people, they don't like that they are hungry in the northeast, so they came down and take the jobs. At the same time, they don't like that the government give money for them to move the market there. So it's another tricky issue of a so big country. The problem, one of the problems is water. This is the point of Brazil that never had water. The government from each state already makes some drill holes and get water, and it serves the population. It's good, but it still have the job issue. It's very hard to develop in this area. That's why most of people know, but a big part of the people became migrating to São Paulo and Rio and Belo Horizonte and the cities around the big towns. But it's not that bad anymore, you know. since they start to getting this government money, they start to move the economy, they start to build new houses, and there are excellent work there in solar energy and also to water capturing. Of course, it's not in the whole sertão, it's not in the whole area, but some parts are already with, I won't say a great development, but you know, there people live with dignity. They have a nice life condition. The big issue is that when you look just like 200 kilometers to the east, you get to the coast and it's another world. But it's not that bad as it sounds. It's getting better. I hope it's getting.
Hello, my name is Isabella and I'm from Italy, and in my country, climate extremely affects how people act or behave. So, for instance, we have this sharp north-south divide where southern people are more friendly, extrovert, but also maybe less efficient than the northern one. And I was wondering, is this a thing in Brazil, meaning that do you have like different human types according to the very diverse climate, types that you have?
Yeah, sure. Well, you see, just one, I will put just one thing. Just for you. Okay. If you check, Italy is here. And you already have these differences between the north and the south. Everything is different from south to north here. The people is extremely different. Even, because if I stop you in the street and say, okay, describe a Brazilian. It's very hard because we have all kinds of ethnicals and colors and stuff like this. So when you go to the north, to the south of Brazil, you have, they think they are another country. 2 years ago, they even start a movement to separate from Brazil. And the language is different, the behavior is completely different.
Yeah, but do you think that has to do, like it's related to the climate or
not only?
I don't know, the past, historical past of the region, or,
well,
it's just because in Italy it's really related to being like the south being warmer and the north being really cold. So I was wondering whether because Brazil is overall really warm and the climate, it's, I don't know, pretty homogeneous, I would say. So do you think like some differences are exclusively related to different climate types?
Yeah, I think there is exclusively to climate because, well, it's different if you have a great weather every day and when you don't have. It is different, but the main thing, if you get the colonization acts different in many ways here. When you go to the south, you have like more German colonization and the people are different. When you go to the northeast, it's a completely different kind of people that lives there. And so the climate, okay, the climate acts in this, of course, but there are so different people, so different. When you describe the physical part of them, they are already different. And, well, I don't know if it's straight connect to the climate, but in Northeast, people are much more friendly. Much more friendly. It's amazing. You go there, you say, I love this place, I don't want to go anywhere else. And I really don't think it's only the climate, because, you know, in Italy, it's a little more uniform kind of people. You know, you can describe an Italian person a little bit more than you can describe a Brazilian person. We have so diversity in humankind too. It's hard to put in one thing only, because there are the kind of people, the kind of weather, sure, and, well, the kind of relief too, because when you go from Minas Gerais itself, when you go here in the south of Minas Gerais, you get one kind of people. Around Brazil, it's not because I'm from here, but around Brazil, Minas Gerais is like, oh, you are so cute, you are from Minas Gerais, everyone like it. You know, oh, you like to eat cheese and drink cachaça and stuff like this. But even in Minas Gerais, the relief, when you live here in the south, you have more mountains, more forests. The people are different than in the north, that is a little more dry, the climate. Well, actually, that is something to do with the climate, but it not just it. There are a lot of other influences in this aspect. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Okay. So, any more questions? Well, thank you very much for the questions, the attention, and feel free to ask anything else. Thank you very much.